master's in public health.
Okay.
But I'm part of a nonprofit organization that's going to build campus for you guys here.
Oh, good. All right. All right, let me get this.
We're talking about difference between sedge and grass, because I had explained that what's popping up through this plastic, which is supposed to suppress weeds, is nut sedge. So while we're out here, everybody just grab one, and then we'll have our lesson about
Right
this.
here?
Yeah,
These?
anything,
Okay.
any of the nut sedge.
Oh, they just come on through, huh?
Yeah,
What
they
are
come on through. It's called nut sedge. It's
call it
Nut
sedge.
sage and nut sash.
Nut sedge.
Nut sedge. Okay, like
S-E-D-G.
say.
That's what they call that tree.
Exactly. But it's a sedge, and this is how you tell. If you take a stem, down here if you got a little bit of a white part, break it in your hands. Now look at the stem and see how it's a triangle. It makes a triangle.
You have what, 3 leaves coming out of it?
Well, it starts with 3, but it can get quite bushier, and it will as we go on. But that's how you tell sedge from a grass. So a grass would be circular. Sedge is always going to be a triangle. Now the other thing about this, and a lot of this might be review for you if you're already
Get
the
the
magic
nut, you're
gardener.
supposed to be the best part, right?
Exactly. Did you get a nut yet? Okay, so why they call it nut sedge is it actually has a nut at the bottom. Now see, you've replanted that one. That's no good. So if you can pull one up and you see a little nut on the bottom, if you're pulling it up and you're not getting a nut, the nut is still in there and it's going to resprout. So that's what makes it so problematic.
Yeah.
Hard to get up once they get big. You can eat the nut, but
How do you pull it so you get the nut?
Get
there's
down.
not really a particular way.
I imagine if you get down as close to the root as you can, just push this down as far as you can and then pull
Yeah.
it up.
Yeah, if you can get one that's coming through the hole.
Oh, he's got one.
But
Wow,
Okay, you
hog
got
eating
your
that.
nutrients.
they have. I've not seen that
That's
actually
all right.
work. You know, because people sometimes they have a real problem with it. They'll run pigs on it and try to, but it really just makes them happier. It's not a really good solution. But that's what we talked about last week, weed control. So the idea of this plastic is to solve our weed problem or at least reduce it, but nut sedge will go right through anything.
So he just pushes his way through and he stops and sees where it's coming through.
Yeah, the leaves are just really, really sharp when they emerge, and they'll cut right through it.
So is this project averse to using something like Roundup 6 weeks before planting?
Yeah, they're trying not
Trying
to
not to-
use
trying to go
those
organic?
chemicals like that. They're not fully organic
Yeah.
because we didn't use organic seed, and we didn't use organic transplants where you see these plants over here. They actually started as plants, and those aren't organic. They did use organic fertilizer, and I think from here on out they're going to try to be a little bit more strict about it. But it's bad stuff. It's bad.
So is this nut grass growing out here?
Probably some of it is, but
I'm just wondering how this infiltrated just
yeah, I
all the
mean,
way down there.
it's probably in the lawn that they cut through
Oh,
to
okay.
when they plowed this up, I'd imagine. So they do have some plants already coming up here. We've seen some of these holes they've got. So this is the okra
I've seen some.
coming up already.
Now, how is this plastic anchored to keep the wind from blowing it?
When they laid it down, you know, they laid it down behind a tractor. They actually came back with shovels. There's plastic underneath this, and they just put the
Oh,
dirt
it's
on the edge.
okay.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
see. That's
that
got it.
that holds it down. Because if you didn't do that when you had a big wind,
Be gone.
yeah,
Okay.
it would be a problem.
Alrighty.
Have you had any experience with reflective mulch that's
I've-
supposed to
right.
deter aphids?
I've never used it myself. I've seen other folks do it. Have you ever done it?
No, I just used some strips of aluminum foil.
Yeah. Have you seen success?
No,
Well, that's the
because
problem.
I didn't cover it completely.
Well, and then, so what he's talking about is sometimes instead of using something that's just white like this, they'll actually use something that looks like aluminum foil. It reflects the light, and it's supposed to help you with an aphid. It deters them, I think. It
Right.
just keeps aphids from coming in. But I think they've seen mixed results on whether or not that actually works.
Yeah.
And this is not easy. This plastic or any sort of flat mulch like this is not easy to put down unless you have the equipment. You'd be doing a lot of, standing like this, pushing a roll down the aisle. And so we were lucky to have somebody who could come in and lay it all down. We have to do it ourselves.
Equipment to lay down the plastic.
Right. And there is I mean, y'all can see at the top, there's a line of drip tape that goes all the way down the middle of these beds, and the whole thing's will be drip irrigation. Lots of advantages to doing drip irrigation over doing sprinkler. Y'all, that's one of the things we talked about last week, so I'll briefly mention.
What, drip irrigation?
Yes. Any ideas, advantages of drip versus overhead?
Well, it saves a lot of water.
That's a big one, because this is city water here, so that's money. But it also prevents disease.
Oh.
So when we have overhead coming down and splashing on the soil and then splashing back up on the plants, it's spreading disease that's in the soil back onto the plants. So having that drip irrigation saves us from that. And there's another thing, which is weeds. When we have drip irrigation, we're putting it right on the plants that we want to grow instead of on everything willy-nilly, so it saves us.
So this is drip irrigation, this little piece right down the middle
Yes,
here.
that's what you're seeing, and that's all the way underneath all these drip plants.
Runs
So-
all the way down.
Yes, ma'am.
So you basically set it up when you set this out. You have to
Yes.
have special.
We learned last week about cutting it on and how often you water. 2 inches of water a week is the requirement for our vegetable plants here. So we run this system for about an hour, 2 hours every day to get the equipment.
Every day.
Yeah, if it rains, we don't have to worry about it if we get a big solid rain. I'm not responsible for that, but they're working with their folks who are in their organization to have a schedule, make sure, because what you don't want to do is have somebody who forgets it.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that's what
I think one of the volunteers lives on this street, I believe.
Yeah.
And they just come through every day and turn the water on for us.
You said 2 hours.
For 2 hours?
a lot. Well, it sounds like a lot of water because you imagine cutting on a faucet and just letting it run full out. But this is not running full out. It gets into it's just dripping a little bit of water at a
Oh, okay,
time.
all right.
I mean, it is a lot of water, but we got a lot of plants to grow here. We got a lot of water needs.
That's because of the volume of the plants. That you said.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
And once these start growing and producing fruit, they'll need more and more water. And of course, that happens once it gets drier, as we get into the summertime. I'll let Lindsay introduce herself as the leader since we got some new folks out here this week.
Hello, good morning. How y'all doing?
I'm good, Lindsay.
Nice to meet you.
Came here. Are you a student at the university?
I'm a graduate of the university.
Oh, wonderful. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
And who you got here with you? With a cater in his hand?
I'm gonna see that at the university.
Oh, you are?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Are you gonna find a place to stick that this morning?
I am. I have like 3 of them.
Great.
What is
Potato.
Well, that's enough to plant about 10 potatoes, isn't it? Okay.
Well, we will get started on today's lesson, which is soils. So everybody's gonna get their hands dirty. Is that okay? You can't really talk about
It's a rough
soils
pocket.
and not get your hands dirty. So if that's okay with everybody. So I talked again about the nutsedge. It looks like y'all pulled a lot of it last week.
Yeah, but more came back.
Yeah, you're gonna have to keep at it, but it doesn't look as bad as it could be, so that's good. What is our basis in soils? Does anybody, you don't answer this. This is our master gardener representative. Fully trained, 12 weeks of gardening education, but anybody else know very much about soils? Ever
No,
thought about
that's
it
why
before?
I'm here. 'Cause
Okay.
I want to start a
Okay.
garden.
So the soils are important because that's where our nutrients come from. It's also where the water is. The plants can soak up the water. We're out here. Y'all have already done a soil test. That's the most important part of getting started gardening because you actually take what you've got and send it off. Here we send it off to Auburn and they tell you what to apply to grow your plants. So we've already performed that. Has anybody ever taken a soil test before? Just to give
I've
you.
seen it done,
Okay.
but I haven't done it myself. A little bit.
So this is how you do it. I don't have a box out here with me, but I'll just describe the process. If this is our growing area, everywhere where there's plastic, we would go out and we would take a little bit of soil across the space. You wouldn't just take it from one spot, but you'd go across the space, mix it up, you put it in a little box that Auburn University gives you, send it off, and they analyze it for you, tell you what you've got and what you need to do, depending on what you're growing. So you tell them we're growing vegetables, they tell you exactly what fertilizers to put out to amend the soil. It costs $7. Good morning, y'all. Come on in.
Good morning.
We're talking soil.
Hi, Miss Whitaker. How you doing?
And so we've done that, and we sent this off to Auburn to analyze it. They told us exactly what nutrients we needed to put out for our plants that were growing. So if you wanted to study soils, if you wanted to go off and get a degree in it, you could, study your whole life. There's so much we don't know about it. So we think about it as just something that's under our feet. We don't really consider it affecting the world around us. But of course, our soil determines what's going to grow where we are. It's determined our history to a great extent. If you think about the Black Belt and what those soils, the type of agriculture that those soils supported, and then the social structure that has led from that type of agriculture, I mean, it's all around us, right? Here in this garden, it's affected the fact that we have nutsedge growing. It's going to affect how much water our plants will have available to them. Anybody ever been to the beach and watched a wave crash on the sand?
Mm-hmm.
What happens when the wave backs away? Does the water stay there? Or does it
Sinking.
sinks in?
Some of it.
It doesn't just stay, right? What do we have on the beach? What kind of soil is that?
Sandy soil.
Okay, yes. Sandy soil doesn't hold water, right?
Nope.
It sinks right through. It's because sandy soil has a lot of pore space. It's got a lot of space between those particles. So it can't hold on to the water. Think about clay. What happens on a clay soil? Anybody live on a clay soil? I'm sure some of you do. When it rains, how long does it stay wet?
It doesn't, because it doesn't soak in.
It just holds it. It just sits there. Clay has very, very tiny particles. Very, very tiny. Much smaller than sand. And so when water comes in, it holds onto that water and it doesn't let go. Clay soil holds water and it basically becomes a pond. That's why we have fish ponds in Greensboro, Alabama, because it's clay. It'll hold that water. It doesn't sink through. Now here we have a little bit different. We have, when they sent this off to Auburn, they told them they had a sandy loam. So it's sandy, but it's also loamy. Now loam is a mixture of sand and clay. It's like an equal parts mixture of sand and clay. Now this is a little bit on the sandy side. So I told you y'all were going to get your hands dirty. Now's the time. If everybody should bend over for a second. We're going to get some of this between our fingers and I just want you to feel it. So this is what soil scientists, people who have, 15 years of degrees under their belt go out and do when they're on the field. They take this between their hands and they feel it. And they say, does it feel smooth or does it feel gritty?
Gritty.
Gritty. Get it real fine between your hands. It feels a little. Imagine making a pot with clay and how smooth that would feel, how silky smooth clay would be. This is a little on the gritty side. And that's that sandy side of the loam that they're talking about. So, if we were a soil scientist, we would say right off the bat, okay, this has got a little bit of sand in it. This is sandy soil. The next thing they would do is they would try to make a ribbon out of it. And what I mean by that is they'd squeeze it between their fingers like this, sort of make a little, see how I'm just squeezing it flat, trying to make a ribbon. You have a great big hunk in your hand, trying to make a ribbon. And they see how far they can get that ribbon before the ribbon breaks. See, mine just broke. I got it about ½ an inch long. Y'all see that? Trying to make that ribbon. Get you good, you gotta have a good hump. You hold it out. You see how far you can get before it breaks off in your hands. If you were in a clay soil in like Lowndes County, Montgomery County, that ribbon would go on about 2 feet before it would break, right? That's that heavy clay. go, you know, this is something you can make a pot out of. But here, because it's sandier, it doesn't get that far before it breaks. So that's how you know you got a sandy soil. Does that make sense? So we can do all these things that somebody getting paid, you know, $60,000 a year would do. We can do these things in our backyard because all it is going out and feeling and looking around you and seeing what's growing and seeing what the soil feels like. So we've got a sandier soil here. Is it going to hold water longer than clay? Shorter than clay.
But longer than the beach.
But longer than the beach because it's got that loam in it. It's got a little bit of clay mixed in. Now, if we find out in the summer here that this soil is not holding enough water, there's a few things that we can do to fix it. One, we've got a drip irrigation system, so we can always add as much water as we need. But there's other things that we can do when we talk about amending the soil. Have y'all ever heard that phrase, amending the soil?
No.
Basically, they're talking about fixing the soil. What can we do to fix it, make it better?
Fertilizer.
Well, we can always fertilize it, but that's an issue of our plant nutrients.
Can we add like a type of soil to keep it, you know, like mix it in?
That's what yes, you're on the right track.
Okay.
Things that we can do to actually improve the soil.
And then the leaves and other.
Yes. Hold on. Because what you're thinking is, if this is sandy, we just need to add clay, right? That's what
Right.
but unfortunately, you can't just go to the store and buy a bunch of clay. So the answer is to do what you're saying, which is to come out and add organic material to the soil. Leaves, compost, you know, these plant materials when they break down to till them back into the soil, because that, what's called organic matter, is actually going to hold water. It's going to improve the soil. It's going to give, as that breaks down, it's going to put nutrients in the soil that your plants can then consume and produce fruit again. So if you're in a sandy soil, you know, our gut is to say, well, just put clay. But the answer is actually organic matter, because that's something that you can produce and keep right here on site. What about if you're in a heavy clay soil? What can you do then? Again, that's the gut instinct, right? So go get sand and put it out there. Unfortunately, most of the sand that we can get at the stores are really, really rough quality. It's made for sandboxes or it's made for construction. So it's actually not the answer. If you've got a really heavy clay, sand, just going out in the store and buying sand and mixing it in isn't the answer. The answer is actually organic matter again. Because in the case of clay, when you go out and you put organic matter in, it's going to help you by breaking that clay up. It breaks those chunks up and it adds, you know, as you add sticks, as you add leaves, it breaks up those hunks of clay and it helps that water move through a little bit better. So if you've got an inferior soil, or any soil really, in Alabama, the answer is always organic matter. That's always going to improve. Yes, sir?
Can I add something? I've also been experimenting with cover crops that break up the clay. Taproot radishes that's long roots, ryegrass, things that you can sow and let cover the soil or the area for a whole season if you want, and then just mix it in. Winter rye. Any kind of rye.
So, yeah, cover crops. What you're doing partially is adding organic matter when you till those back in, but he's also talking about something else, which is using really deep-rooted crops that will go in and bust up that clay pan, bust up harder soils, bring nutrients up to the top. So when you're talking about things like those deep-rooted, radishes or turnips, they are getting down deep into the soil, pulling nutrients up, and then when you till those back in to the top, you've brought nutrients up and you're depositing them on the surface. There's lots of different things. I mean, soil is a fascinating thing. There's so much that you can do to improve it. The other thing, we talked about the chemistry, well, we talked about the physics of soil, we talked about the different soil particles. If I could get, there is a jar of water back there and a shovel. If y'all could grab that and tap it up front.